Hi everyone. So in this video, what I'm going to try to do is give you my example for the series of linked paragraphs that I wrote, and give you a few more instructions to try to make it a little bit easier for you to write your paragraphs. So first of all, I want to say that I mentioned in the instructions that you should write 3 linked paragraphs. However, paragraph 2 was split up into 2 parts. So you might choose, instead of writing 3 paragraphs, to write 4, depending on what you want to say in paragraph 2. So the example that I've actually created here, I've actually done that. I've split my paragraph 2 into 2 separate paragraphs. So instead of writing 3 paragraphs, I've written 4. It's up to you how you want to do it. You can adjust it based on what you've written. It's fine either way. So the other thing to note is this template that I filled in here that you have access to. You have access to a blank one as well. Feel free to adjust it as needed, because the way that you're writing this series of paragraphs could be quite different from the way somebody else is doing that. So I tend to follow this topic sentence, point support, concluding sentence sort of format here. You don't have to have 3 points. If you want to talk about 2 points and develop them well, that's okay. For paragraph number 2, if you're splitting that up, so like I've done here, and instead of having just 1 paragraph talking about why the characters behave the way they do, if you have 2 paragraphs, then perhaps your paragraphs might be a little bit shorter. You don't necessarily need to have 3 points, as long as you're able to explain why the characters behave the way they do, and incorporate both their decisions as characters, as people, and the artist's decision to do this. Like, why would the artist want this to happen? As long as you're able to include both of those aspects to this section, you can kind of arrange this however you want. Although you will need a topic sentence at least, and you will need points with support. But how many points, how much support? If you want just 1 concluding sentence for both sections, like I've done here, this should say concluding sentence. That's up to you. So let me take you through my example. So this example is, again, for the last night of the world, because again I wanted to choose something that you're familiar with, that I could walk you through. So the question that I'm going to be answering here is, should the couple have spent the last night of the world with their children? Because they put their children to bed at 8:30, and then they spend the rest of the night just alone with themselves, with their children in bed, which it's kind of controversial. I mean, you could see why they might do that, and I've argued for why they might do that down here. But you could also see maybe why, the last night of the world, the last time that you have a chance to spend with the people you love, why would you want them to go to bed at the usual time? Okay, so my first paragraph here. So you want to list elements of setting, conflict, characters, plot, and perhaps other points that are relevant. Okay, and what I mean by relevant is that these aspects should be connected to context that allows the reader to understand your question. In other words, you're not just summarizing the plot, or you're not just summarizing the story, you are trying to connect the story to your question. So you'll notice that in my summary, once I actually write it, I don't say everything that's in the plot, but I do focus a lot on the parts of the plot, characters, conflict, and setting that relates to this question. Okay, so again, we said this is context. You're writing a paragraph here to explain the question to somebody that has never read your short story before. So you have to give them enough information. You don't have to tell them everything, but you have to give them enough information, and you have to connect the information to the question. Okay? So I'm writing down things that I think might be relevant here. So setting, the end of the world in a family home. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty important, right? If we're talking about a couple spending time with their children, well, why wouldn't they be able to spend time with their children? Are their children young? Are their children maybe older and adults and they've moved out? But if we're talking about this happening in a family home in the US, with 2 small children, then we understand the situation. Okay, yeah, so the family is living together in this small home. The kids are in the same home, so it wouldn't be hard for them to spend the last night together. Okay, so conflict. So I want to talk about the fact that the end of the world is coming. They may have been afraid previously, but they're now at peace with it, right? The story seems very calm. We don't have a lot of evidence of fear, but maybe they were afraid before. Okay, so the characters that are important here, the husband, wife, and 2 girls. So all the main characters of this story are pretty important here. The characters that are mentioned sort of at the husband's work or the wife meets out in the community are not that important, so I'm not really going to focus on them other than just to say that everybody had the same dream, and that we're not sure if the children know. So again, this is a small plot detail, but because we're going to be answering this question about children in the last night of the world, I tend to focus more on what's up with the children. So we're not sure if they know about the dream, but they play happily. They did not ask about the dream. So simultaneous, meaning dreams that happen at the same time about the last night of the world. So this would be the husband at work and the wife with the women on the block. So all the people are having the same dream. The children are put to bed at 8:30. Night lights are turned on and their doors left ajar. So again, I'm really focusing on the way that they leave the children in the story. And then focusing on the fact that they stay up until 11:30 in front of the fireplace. They listen to radio, read papers. So I'm focusing on what it is that the parents are actually doing without their children. Okay, so again, I've written down here the actual finished copy of my linked paragraphs. So I'm going to briefly look through this once I finish going through the outline. Okay, but again, I'm trying to give information that generally summarizes at least part of the plot, at least part of the story, and focuses on what the person who is reading my linked paragraphs will need to know what this question is about. Okay, so my second paragraph, why the characters behave the way that they do. So you'll see in this section, I'm focusing on the characters themselves. Why do they make the choices that they make? So you can give your opinion in this section because you might not know for sure. However, you can give an opinion and kind of back it up with evidence from the text. And that's what I've done here. So I'm going to say they're not involving the children because they're trying to avoid upsetting them. Do I know this for a fact? No. But I think I have some evidence from the text. So, for example, the husband glances at them playing in the parlor and lowers his voice. So this is sort of near the beginning of the story where they begin talking about the dream and all that kind of thing. It's mentioned that he looks at his girls and then speaks at a lower tone of voice. So he doesn't want them to hear. So maybe he doesn't want them to hear because he doesn't want them to be upset. Okay, so then if they want to avoid upsetting them, then treating this night like any other night will give their children reassurance, right? It'll make them feel better and ensure they do not spend their last moments in fear. So if it's just like any other night, they don't have to even think about the possibility that the world's ending. And so there is some evidence that they're putting their children to bed with reassurance in mind and trying to make them feel less fear. So they leave their nightlights on, they leave the door slightly ajar, meaning very slightly open, for them to call if they're afraid. So they kind of accommodate their children in this way. They're clearly taking into consideration the fact that they could potentially be in fear if they're not careful. And then they might think that the children would prefer to spend the last night of the world together without them. So my argument here is going to be, this seems to be true of the couple, right? They want to spend the time alone in front of the fireplace listening to the radio. Maybe their kids want to spend time alone as well. Maybe they talk to each other when they go to sleep. Maybe they are tired and they just want to sleep. They don't want to stay up. So maybe the parents think that not only will this reassure them, but this is what they would prefer. Okay? So this is where I'm talking about from the perspective of the parents. What might they be thinking? Why did they make this decision? Here I'm going to be looking at from the perspective of what the piece is trying to tell us. So again, I'm going to focus on this theme that there's sort of beauty in the ordinary and the routine. I could have gone with different themes. Some of you pointed out quite interestingly that one of the other major themes is maybe the fact that they're doing these routine things is actually not a good thing, and maybe this is why the world is ending, because they focused only on themselves and their family, and perhaps even they're focusing on themselves here is selfish with the whole situation with the children. And so this is why the world is ending, because people just looked inwards and didn't try to stop the horrible things that are happening. But in any case, so I'm going to argue that there are several artistic reasons why, and I'm going to not say too many of them. I'm really only going to point out two here. but I'm going to give support. So the plot choice contributes to the theme that there's beauty in ordinary routine actions, including putting the children to bed as usual. So I'm going to argue that putting the children to bed as usual contributes to this theme about beauty in ordinary routines. So the wife comments that these ordinary routines are something to be proud of. So I'm saying, yes, this theme does exist, that ordinary routine actions being beautiful is a part of the text. And then I'm going to argue that the routine actions are paired with the imagery of a loving family. So we get this connection between routine and sort of this idea of love. So maybe the routine actions, at least some of them, are not just done out of routine, but they're done out of love. So the couple drinks coffee while playing with their children, while their children play in front of them. So we have a connection there. We have the idea that when the kids are put to bed, they're kissed goodnight and their night lights are left on. So we can see that, yes, this is a routine thing, but their parents care for them. When the couple is going to go to bed, the wife says, well, we've been good to each other anyway. So clearly there is some love between the couple here. And as they lay down, as they do each night, they clasp their hands and heads together. So it's not just that we have routine things happening, but we can see that the family loves each other in this routine. Okay, and that's generally what I say in my concluding sentence here. In the last paragraph, I give my opinion. So I am going to go against the artist's decision. I'm going to say in the real world, this would probably not be a good thing to do. It's up to you. You can go against or you can go with the decision of the artist, as long as you back up your own opinion with what you think from the real world. So I'm going to argue here that they shouldn't have put the kids to bed if the world was really ending, because our loved ones take priority over these little things, these sort of routine things that are supposed to be beautiful. And I'm going to say it's kind of heartless to have a quiet evening in front of the fireplace over spending hours with loved ones. If you have a choice, you should include your loved ones. And in any case, they could enjoy some of their little things with the children participate. They could have the children, maybe they could have a chance for a bit of fun or a special evening. So if they're tired, they could sleep in front of the fireplace and have sort of like a sleepover situation, or they can continue playing with their blocks or something fun that they want to do. And they can still listen to the radio and they can still have their fire while this is going on. And then finally, that they're neglecting their duties as parents, because we don't know how the world is going to end. They don't know how the world is going to end for sure. And so these kids might be terrified once it starts to happen, right? I mean, it could be a very scary thing. So rather than just having the door open ajar, maybe they should be in the room so that they can be there together when this thing happens. Okay. So I'm not going to say too much about the linked paragraphs, but please read through them. You'll notice I've added some transition words in here. Again, using an outline will help you to write your linked paragraphs in a way that keeps them focused and organized. I'm going to give you the option of handing in your outline and your rough copy for your paragraphs early, and then I can return them to you edited so that you can hand in a good copy, having read some feedback. So please use the outline and please feel free to adjust it in any way that you see fit to help you write your series of linked paragraphs. That's kind of one of the goals here, because outlines are very useful, and usually you should follow an outline as is, because normally your task will fit into this framework. But in the real world, we don't really use these templates, right? We just outline our work and we write whatever we want to write to fit the purpose that we're writing for. So I want you to be a little experimental here. Try and shuffle things around as you see fit, as long as you're able to keep your work organized and as long as you're able to support your points either from your own experiences or from the text. Okay, so again, first paragraph will outline the situation so that people can understand your question, and you can maybe put your question at the very end of your first paragraph. So please read through mine and see how that works. Second and third paragraph, I've told you pretty much in detail what those are about. Same with the third paragraph. So please read through my example and let me know if you have any questions. Okay, that's it. Thank you.